The city isn't what it used to be. It all happened so fast. Everything went to crap. It's like everyone's sense of morals just disappeared. The bad economy made things worse. The jobs started drying up. Then the stores had to shut down. Then a black man was elected president. He was supposed to change things. He didn't. As more and more people turn to crime and violence, the town becomes gripped in fear. Dark times. The city needs protection. There is an animal that lives by night, searches through trash cans and cleans out the garbage. To clean the trash can of society, I've chosen to become more than a man. I am the hero this town needs. I am the Coon.
Hello, fam. Welcome to the Coon Chronicles, where today we're going to be exploring the dishonest narratives and coonish mindset of the one and only Candace Owens.
And now for a brief history of slavery. Here's the first thing you need to know. Slavery was not invented by white people. It did not start in 1619 when the first slaves came to Jamestown. It existed before then. It did not start in 1492 when Columbus discovered the New World. Slavery existed in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. The word slave actually comes from the Slavs of Eastern Europe. Millions of them, all white by the way, were captured and enslaved by Muslims in the 9th century and later by the Ottoman Turks. Slavery existed when the Roman Empire controlled the Mediterranean and most of Europe from the 1st through the 5th centuries. Slavery existed when Alexander the Great conquered Persia in the 4th century BC. It was so common that Aristotle simply considered it natural. As renowned historian John Steele Gordon notes from time immemorial, slaves were a major item of commerce. As much as a third of the population of the ancient world was enslaved. Here's the second thing you need to know. White people were the first to formally put an end to slavery. After centuries of human slavery, white men led the world in putting an end to the abhorrent practice. That includes the 300,000 Union soldiers, overwhelmingly white, who died during the Civil War. Instead, we're told that slavery is a white phenomenon. And like all persistent lies, this lie spawns a bunch of other lies. On social media, I come across extraordinary depictions about how Africans lived like pharaohs before Europeans came and laid waste to their paradise. I wish any of this were true, but it's not. It's fantasy. The truth is that Africans were sold into slavery by other Black Africans, and in many cases, sold for items as trivial as gin and mirrors. Whites didn't go into the interior and round up the natives. They waited on the coast for their Black partners to bring them Black bodies. The stark reality is that our lives had very little value to our ancestors. Here's the third thing you need to know. If you think slavery is a relic of the past, you're wrong. There are some 700,000 slaves in Africa today, right now. That's the lowest estimate that I could find. Other sources say there are many more. For context, that's almost twice as many slaves as were ever brought to the United States. Child soldiers, human trafficking, forced labor, these are the conditions that currently exist within the same sub-Saharan region where the transatlantic slave trade originated. African bodies are being sold today like they were sold then, and no, they are not being purchased by any country of white men.
She's a conservative mouthpiece and a pet for white supremacist masters, well known for her outspoken views on race, culture, and politics. She has gained quite a bit of prominence, though, as a vocal critic of the Black Lives Matter movement and a supporter of conservative policies. She has built her platform partly by pandering to pro-white audiences, criticizing movements like Black Lives Matter, while gaining support from white conservatives who often oppose racial progress. Strangely enough, though, she positions herself as a champion of Black empowerment, but her rhetoric often sparks debate, as most Black people can see clearly that she employs a narrative that often undermines the struggle of the Black community. It is also interesting to see how she claims that racism isn't real and is repulsed by Black Lives Matter, but had no problem with jumping up in an exciting fashion, just giddy, to wear a White Lives Matter shirt. Oh, and by the way, many Black people aren't fans of Black Lives Matter, the organization, but are like myself who support the ideal of Black Lives Mattering, which in America has never mattered. Candace Owens is notorious for slandering the Black community through her remarks that question systematic racism and often dismisses the importance of social justice movements. She regularly frames issues like racial inequality as an exaggeration or rooted in victimhood, which of course says Black people are looking for ways to distract from the real problems facing Black people. And just like any other useful Black tool for white supremacy, she'll just chalk it up to Black culture and a Black baby mama crisis. And I too have my issues about the breakdown of the Black family, but this approach is all about alienating Black people and trivializing our experiences. Well, let me just stop there, as she has stated more than once that she doesn't even consider herself a part of the Black community.
It wasn't Kanye West that put the White Lives Matter t-shirt on first. You did. You did by intentionally ignoring what Black Lives Matter would actually mean if it was applied. It would mean taking a look at the real problem that is happening, which is our culture. A celebration of perversity pitched to us as if it's diversity. It's not. It is not diversity that we are celebrating. It is perversity. You think that it's something to be proud of. It's not. So when you say something like, oh, Candace Owens, we don't want you in our culture. You don't understand Black culture. I have to keep reminding you that I don't want to be a part of this culture.
Because some of the stuff that people say in our community, and I am convinced that we are the most racist, but somehow we've sanctioned being racist towards white people, so nobody recognizes as racism, right? So case in point, when I posted a photo, of my husband, and someone wrote, the racist comments are there for Black people. This must be why she's conservative. Oh, the white man this. You should be ashamed of yourself for not knowing your history. Your ancestors died for that right, okay? Like when Love versus Virginia, the Supreme Court case, when they literally got imprisoned, a Black and a white person for falling in love. You know what I mean? These people fought to end that sort of discrimination so that you could marry who you love, right? True equality, being able to marry who you love, where their background doesn't matter. And you're ashamed of that. You say you want integration, but you're fighting for more segregation. Part of the gap that we're facing is that there's this educational gap where you have a bunch of Black people who know nothing about Black history. They only know Black present. They only know Black media and what people are telling them and what it means to be Black, and by celebrities who are largely ignorant. LeBron James is number one to me. He's so talented on the court, but this is not an educated man, right? And so he takes the bait and a bunch of people follow him and they go, oh yeah, see, LeBron's actually Black. LeBron, you are hurting Black America.
Remember the BLM movement, May of 2020, when every high school girl in America was absolutely required to put a black square on her Instagram page? Remember that? Well, it was a scam. Actually, it turns out it was a scam, and it really hurt the country. Candace Owens has done an entire documentary on this. It's called The Greatest Lie Ever Sold, George Floyd and the Rise of BLM. Candace Owens is the person who caused the suffering you just saw. She's the producer of the brand new documentary, The Greatest Lie Ever Sold, George Floyd and the Rise of BLM. One of the bravest people we know, and one of the smartest joins us tonight. Candace Owens, thanks so much. First of all, thank you for doing this. It's like that whole moment is forgotten. Why did you think it was important to make a documentary about it?
It is important to pause and to reflect and to consider what happened and ask a very big question, which for whatever reason no journalist was interested in at the time. We were all basically required to either put up a black square or donate to Black Lives Matter or to make some, statement online about how Black people are suffering. I was interested because they turned me into public enemy number one for accurately talking about George Floyd, not in the capacity of a hero, but in the capacity of a person who was addicted to drugs and who had enough fentanyl in his system to kill a horse at the time that he died.
It is a kind of a grievance culture. Generation G, we hear about Generation Y and X, but gosh, there's a lot of grievance out there that's kind of unprovable, the underlying allegations.
Right, in many ways, she is a victim of the culture, and I've said this over and over again ad nauseum, which is just that victimhood has become almost a mental plague upon Black America in particular, because that word racism is being so overused.
Candace Owens's conservative funders are definitely getting their money's worth, because just recently she was on Tucker Carlson's show saying what she's paid to say. Basically smear Black Americans. Let's watch.
One thing I always say, Tucker, is that the left can pull a racist narrative from thin air where it doesn't exist, but when it actually is in their face, they try to avoid it at all costs, especially when the perpetrator is a Black person against another white person, which obviously happens more often in this country, given the fact that Black Americans are the most murderous group in America by rate.
It's a broken culture, it's a broken society, and hip hop is hurting things. But I also want to talk to you about something I've realized. Even if Black Americans are aware and know their history, right? And you can get Black conservatives who understand the history much more, who understand, the ills of the left and what the left has done. But still in that regard, they bring to the conservative side the same bad habits that I was hoping Black conservatives would be abandoning. And what I'm talking about, number one, is conflict resolution. Black Americans do not know how to resolve basic conflicts. Everything has to turn into a fight. I hate you forever. You got to draw lines. It's like you're this gang or that gang.
Adding to the coonery is her personal life, particularly her marriage to a white man, which she often discusses publicly in a almost bragging way. She often flaunts her swirler marriage to a white man who was born into wealth, by the way, as proof of her colorblind mentality. Oh, I have also noticed that Black people who date or marry whites tend to be infected with self-hatred and have complete disregard for Black people, no matter where the Black people live on the planet. Now, some would argue that her marriage is used rhetorically to claim objectivity or to dismiss critiques of racial issues, claiming her personal choices demonstrate her rejection of racial divisions. However, her vocal skepticism of systematic racism and her support for pro-white policies that often oppose Black progress seems rather inconsistent with promoting racial unity or fairness. Her largest audiences? Well, can you guess? They are predominantly white Christians, mostly white Christian men who follow her messaging. I mean, she's always worshiping them, the white man, and providing constant praise is what draws the white man into her content. To me, this raises questions about the dynamics of her influence, since she loves amplifying racial divisions to appeal to her fragile white Christian male base. Her content intentionally fuels a narrative that portrays Black people as inherently problematic or overly dependent on government aid, meanwhile gaining support from those who oppose racial equity and simultaneously ignoring the government aid that her white plantation masters receive annually. Isn't that something? Now, I want to spend a moment discussing the Gaza fallout and her recent betrayal. Now, this is where things get really interesting. Despite years of pandering to her white paymasters, organizations like PragerU and the Daily Wire, Owens was recently cut loose. But why? Because she dared to speak out against the Gaza genocide, criticizing Israel's actions and questioning the mainstream narrative on Palestine. You see, Mr. Facts Don't Care About Your Feelings, Ben Shapiro, will talk about racial divisiveness, victimhood, opposing legal protections, and opposing a separate and free Black state, and also opposing reparations when it comes to Black people. But when it comes to his people, he's completely for all of those things and so much more. Again, this shows how emotional, weak, and fragile the average white man is, because despite nearly a decade of using Candace Owens to slander Black people and claiming to fight for the right to have the freedom of speech, or well, often the freedom of speech to say the N-word, Ben Shapiro, Dennis Prager, and other white males couldn't handle 3 or 4 teeny-miny little months of minor critique of the nation of Israel. These are truly weak men.
Would Palestinians have the right to return to Gaza if they left while the rebuilding was happening?
It would be my hope that we could do something really nice, really good, where they wouldn't want to return. The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years.
We have, at long last, arrived to the period where, after a year of gaslighting us and telling us that wasn't happening, like everyone just smearing us in the media, calling everybody anti-Semitic who noticed that an ethnic cleansing was taking place, we're just now getting to the point
which is an ethnic cleansing is going to take place. We're going to just move millions of bodies. And now we're going to try to emotionally engineer the public to think that it's acceptable by saying, well, there's nothing left. Our bombs bombed it all. Why would they want to go back there? There's nothing left. And so one of the other favored lies about me in the media is that I agree with everything Trump says and he does. And I could not disagree more with this. I could not have been more vocal in my lack of support for any person who, whether left or right, who claims to be a good and a compassionate person who is okay with what is happening and what they are saying they're going to do, all statements which are on record before October 7th even happened. And in terms of Trump talking about the real estate of the property, saying they have to go, and Jared Kushner was on tape speaking about how much worth the property could be.
I'm not sure there's much left of Gaza at this point. In Gaza's waterfront property, it could be very valuable to, if people would focus on kind of building up. It's a little bit of an unfortunate situation there, but I think from Israel's perspective, I would do my best to move the people out and then clean it up.
And now they're saying that the UK should take these people. And this just puts us on that circle. You know, it's loony. You have the people in the UK and other countries going, I don't recognize my country. Why don't I recognize my country? Why is this country becoming majority Muslim population? And they don't want to connect the dots and say, well, you know which country is not becoming majority population, just seems to be expanding its borders all the time? Israel. And we keep fighting their wars or funding their wars. We haven't stopped doing that. So as they become more ethnocentric, as they keep getting more land, as they keep having strict rules about who is allowed to commute there, our countries are looking very different. For those of you who can't even imagine, just take a second to pause and think about the fact that for 2 years, these people have been walking on foot, children crying. Find it. It's online. Go look at it. Bleeding, kids being shot in the head. Okay, they're saying 20,000. We know it's now more because of the number that they're giving us in terms of saying how many people have to be moved.
Nevertheless, I am glad that she spoke up about Palestine, but she's never spoke up for Black people, and she still doesn't, because that isn't quite the Coon way, and it never will be.
Of course, as I have said since the beginning of time, there are mistakes that police officers are human beings. There are mistakes that happen, and the idea that now you're going to use this situation and all the usual suspects are already involved, we know that Attorney Crump is already involved, to then try to make Black Americans believe that this happened simply because she was Black is pointedly ridiculous. So I am saying to Black Americans today, do not take this bait. Yes, what happened in this situation, I think he's going to have a very hard time, this officer, saying that he absolutely felt so threatened by boiling water that the only solution was for him to mindfully say, I'm going to shoot you in the face, and that's what he did. I think that's going to be a very steep hill to climb. But the reaction from Black America cannot be exactly what they want. There is a reason that whoever is in control of Joe Biden's account instantly tweeted about this, okay? It's because they think we're stupid. They think we're emotional. I think that we always respond illogically and emotionally, and that it's an easy way for them to shore up votes by saying, oh, look, forget that we've destroyed everything around you and that we got you to burn down your neighborhoods, burn down your neighborhoods in 2020, and then obviously stole a bunch of money because none of that money actually went to making your neighborhoods better. And so now those communities are desolate. Forget all of that, because look, another video, and this means racism is back, and vote for us because we're going to show you how emotional we are. That the only reason whoever is in control of his account is putting that out there is because too many Black Americans are turning toward Trump. They think too many Black Americans are catching on to the Democrat scam, and so they scan every one of these situations and they leave out the hard facts. And the hard facts are that if you examine this just based on a percentage rate, white Americans unarmed are more likely to be shot and killed by police officers in mistakes, shot and killed by police officers in these correspondences than Black Americans. That is a fact. There's never been a time ever on his timeline where he has shared anything about a white person being killed unarmed by a police officer because it doesn't feed their narrative. So stand up to this, okay? And all you have to do is be mentally forthright. Do not fall for the scam. Do not run out of your house. Do not burn down your neighborhood in Springfield, Massachusetts.
The letter you wrote to Candace Owens, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to say what you said about it. And
it's 7,500 words. You couldn't read the whole thing.
No, I'm not going to go through it. That'll take us a while, right? But I'll say this. So Dennis Prager confronts Candace Owens on anti-Semitism in 15-page letter. Let me see where this is at, page 11. Let me go to it. Rob, let's see what we got. So it's going to take me about 30 minutes to read this, folks, so hang tight. Here we go. Prager stresses that actions overweigh Motives, telling Owens, motives rarely matter, actions matter, and as the amount of evil done by people with good motives is far greater than the amount of evil committed by people with evil motives. Despite this shock, he notes, I don't impugn your motives, I don't even judge them, but condemns the consequences of her statements. What happened there? What happened there with your messaging?
So there's a particularly difficult notion or situation, not notion. Because Candace, I think, had her big opening with PragerU, and she worked with us until, I don't know, about 3-4 years ago. Then she went to the Daily Wire. And she was, we had a great deal of hope and faith in her, because she was courageous, she's articulate, which is known to everybody, and she's not wrong on everything. But for reasons I believe literally only God knows, I'm not even sure she does, she just took a turn on Jews, Zionism, Israel, that I couldn't believe it. And so I didn't say anything for a while, because I just thought, wait a minute, this is not the Candace I know. My wife and I attended her wedding in England. I mean, that's how close we are.
In just a few short months, Candace Owens went from playing the role of the black female queen, tap-dancing conservative sharecropper icon, to challenging her white benefactor's stance, and that's when they showed her the door. This clearly exposes her true loyalties. She's not committed to black liberation or justice, and to be fair to her, she's never made that claim. But she is only interested in maintaining her position within a white-dominated Christian conservative machine. One of the most glaring hypocrisies is Owens stands on race organizations like the NAACP. She criticizes these institutions for allegedly perpetuating racial divisions, but from a paradoxical standpoint has used legal measures associated with the NAACP to sue and challenge policies claiming protection under the same measures she currently condemns. That's right, she used the NAACP to sue a school that she was attending on the grounds of racism and won. Yeah, but of course, we all know that her game is a grift from a grifting coon. You see, Candace was once a strident liberal Democrat, but she did the math in her head. Black feminist Democrats are a dime a dozen, but there are very few black female coons blatantly slandering their own people. She wouldn't just be a scarcity, but almost provocative and sexy to the average white Christian male. They would find her absolutely irresistible to not click and like her content, and because the white man is so needy, he will pay her constantly with a steady flow of white currency, just as long as she knows her place and continues to provide them a steady diet of coonery and white praise. At its core, Candace Owens exemplifies a rudimentary paradox, promoting white empowerment and conservative values, yet constantly employing rhetoric that dismisses genuine racial struggles. Her support base and alliances suggest her influence is intertwined with pro-white political agendas that often serve to maintain existing racial hierarchies under the guise of political freedom. Candace Owens is indeed a coon.
You said that the Sonia Massey situation was not about race. But what the fuck was it about? A black woman that calls 911 for help and she ends up getting massacred. When they came into the house, they were already disrespectful to her, talking down to her like she was nothing. See, most of the time, people do not see African Americans as human beings. That is why people have the nerve to talk to us different ways, whether it's in grocery stores, whether it's in department stores, because they already do not see us as human beings. When Candace Owens got fired off of her network, that podcast network she was doing, all of a sudden she went to all the black media. She's on the Breakfast Club, and she figured, oh, let me sing the Fresh Prince. That'll get me back in. Getting a little tired of that shit. You might as well sing Good Times too. And the Jeffersons. These B-wicks, man, we got to get rid of these B-wicks, man. Black when it's convenient.